So here we are again, another day of fantastic conversations globally, led by our good friend Jonathan and crew. And we just watched a panel about privacy and cybersecurity in the age of COVID-19, and a lot of discussions around employee privacy, user privacy, tracking, tracing, all that kind of good stuff. And in this conversation, we carry over one of the panelists there, Nat Ishida. Thanks for joining. And we have a new guest joining us, Desmond Israel, staying up late from Ghana for us. Thanks, Desmond, for joining. And obviously, I'm Sean, Marco's there, and Jonathan is going to be part of this conversation with us. We're gonna forge through COVID-19. We're going to embrace this moment in this conversation and figure out how we can make for a better, safer, more secure privacy when it matters world as we charge through.
Yep.
So with that, Marco, why don't you take it?
Well, we all talk about this digital transformation. We've heard about it for a while. It's like this. It's coming. Who knows when it's coming? It sounds like artificial intelligence. We don't know when it's coming at the general level. But the point is, all of a sudden, we had this situation, the COVID-19. Everybody's working from home. And all of a sudden, it's not coming. It's here. And companies have been kind of scrambling and try to figure out how to handle things, and also bring in some technology to help us to figure out these things as well with the tracing apps and so forth. But what we want to do in this conversation is to kind of try to get the positive aspect of this. So Sean and I were chatting and be like, maybe this is an opportunity for cut some legacy stuff that we don't need anymore, simplify things. Maybe it's not just about bringing the office at home. It's just about having a new concept of working from home and how we handle privacy. So it's a handful. You can start wherever you want. And Nat, maybe with you.
Sure. I think you've heard the phrase, never waste a good crisis. So
yes. Good one.
So yeah, and that is what I hear from my colleagues in the office as well, the management team of the company I work for. And I think, this is something that we are absolutely forced to think about now more so. And in Japan, what I figured out, and watching the news, because I think my company, which is sort of based in Sweden, because of Volvo, part of the Volvo group. But anyway, it's a more Western style, more advanced in terms of, I think, trying to arrange for work from home setups and being prepared. And even then, I think that was like, I don't know, I felt like some of it was still not ready, but we had to be pushed into the situation. And then I think when I listen to things that are happening in Japan, the rest of Japan, in the Japanese companies, there's even more difficulty people are facing with people not having laptops assigned, or don't even have the ability to work from home, and therefore they are having to still commute to the office. And then one big thing that has been highlighted in Japan recently is the issue of company seals, using the company chops to enter into agreements. That has been one of the sort of barriers for people to work from home. So there's been people specifically going to the office for, certain time in a day, just to make sure that the contracts are sealed and with the company seal. And I think that is something that we have been talking for a very long time about digitalizing or changing. And now we're really having to actually do something about it. So I think this has become sort of an opportunity to rethink how we work, how we, perceive the importance, why do we have these jobs? And, is it important enough that people risk their lives or, the health to go to the office every day, just so we can keep this tradition up. So I think it's a little bit about tradition and some of the sort of social culture versus what is logically the right path, I think, for any companies to perform in an efficient and effective way in this world. So that those issues have become more highlighted, I think, in Japan, and people are starting finally to think about it.
Yeah,
So
that's an excellent point. I think tradition, when we talk about culture and people, and when we move that over to the tech world, it's because we've done it like that always, right? So Desmond, I'd like to get your perspective, and maybe even a specific view into your region in the world. Are there parts of the business, perhaps, that are driven by technologies and processes that have been that way just because, right? They're legacy systems, legacy processes, legacy applications. And are companies in a position, do you think, to take a step back, look at how they run the business from a risk perspective and say, you know what, we've been running with too much exposure here. Now is the time to rethink how we do that, and perhaps not collect that data, not open up that port, not use that application, right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts there?
Okay. I think we've actually been hit by the shock of the pandemic. I can tell you for a fact that many of the companies have not actually prepared for this day. And as you might be well aware, when it comes to digital transformation, you're actually looking at moving your entire process, digitizing the critical part of it, and making sure you're making it available to your clients, your consumers, or whoever subsumes your service. One of the challenges actually had to do with the government services. And we are faced by two big issues. One is connectivity, the quality of connectivity, and the cost of connectivity. So I'll give you an example. I have actually made a Facebook post where I have said that COVID in our context has actually not only unveiled the gap, but as actually widened that gap further, especially in education. Now we have schools trying to move studies online. They are trying to all of a sudden plug up portals, try to use video online tools, communication platforms to get everybody coming on board. But hey, we have people in the rural areas who don't even have a radio. They are going to write the same examination with people in the urban who are getting access to these connectivity platforms. There's a national television for e-learning right now, and there was an interview with one of these gentlemen in the remote areas who says he doesn't have a TV. He's going to take his senior high exam with people who are on the urban side having access to these platforms and getting on with the learning. So you can even see from the governmental point of view that we didn't even envisage that we are going to be faced with this problem. And that's it. If we had put our minds to it, that look, when you put a digital platform together, it is to connect everybody, is to bring people at the same par. Look at these SIRE event, for instance, across the world. We are having the same conversation. Everybody is up. You're getting to meet new faces without getting out of your home. Even though there's a lockdown, even though there's a ban on flights, that is the thinking that we are supposed to have from government, corporate, and individuals. Now, let me move to the corporate and give you an example. We have businesses who from the get-go have a problem with people coming to work over the wire. So if I were at home and I said, okay, a client has sent a document that needs to be worked on, I'm going to work on that document as a lawyer. I'm going to upload it. I need the client to come online to come and verify the document, and then we proceed from there. You're going to have a law firm where your senior partner is going to ask you to show up in the law firm and come and prepare that document there. If it takes me 45 minutes to drive to the law firm, that is 45 minutes of my time wasted. So it's a problem within the region where we had to change our context. We had to move from necessarily seeing people before we appreciate what the work that they put into or the value that they bring to the table, into understanding that we can actually get more value from people when they are even away from the workspace. So the concept of cumulative time spent should actually be part of how we assess people and how they work and what value they bring to the table. So yes, the COVID pandemic has actually opened us up and show that our connectivity on which all these things are built needs to be looked at. The cost of it needs to be looked at. And obviously, various modules, various platforms, various applications, the way we interact is definitely going to change moving forward.
Yeah, you have to look at it as an investment, right? So what you just said, like the waste of time to go to the office. For certain things, we're human. We need to stay in touch. It's part of who we are. But we have found this way to be in touch even right now. As I said, I mean, we're all here having a good conversation, people watching. And every time we put into work, it's still work time. I was reading about in Sweden, I believe, they were having an idea about paying for the time of the commute, because if you're answering email, you're working on a document where you're commuting, that's working time. And it may be more efficient than actually being in an office, because in an office, you're probably full of distraction and full of meeting that you wish you didn't have because you're just wasting time. So, that's something that is a cultural change that we need to
work on.
Yeah.
Well, it also opens up the opportunity to bring in different people from different areas that maybe can't make that commute for whatever reason. Maybe the train doesn't run there, or there are no means through which to find transportation. Yet those minds are there, ready to engage and be part of whatever problem the company is trying to solve, right?
The tools is one thing, and then I think behaviors is also another thing that needs to sort of maybe make transition over time. Like whenever we have in my company a video or Skype or whatever calls kind of a thing, there's always a little bit of a discussion of, okay, do we go video or not? Because people don't want to show their faces, or people don't want to see people to see the background in their house or whatever. And it becomes a little bit like it's hard to separate completely the private, space and the workspace that you're in. And so that behavioral change also needs to come with the tools to make this work.
Yep, but here we are, everybody from home, except for Jonathan. It's in this little. And this is the new normal for now. So, what else is going to be, on your opinion, the new normal? Like, what kind of legacy office business stuff? You mentioned, Nat, that you're still using a lot of faxes in Japan.
Yes.
And I'm like, I don't even have that. I don't even know how long.
Let me tell you, the governments, the banks, all these official documents that they want, you to send in. Like right now, because I have a little bit more time, personal time off work, sometimes I try to take care of some things with the banks or, the government things. And basically, they really still expect you to either send the originals or, fax is actually very frequently used as a method of transmitting that information. And I have, in some cases, just, whenever I find an email address of the person that is dealing with me, if I find an email address, I'm just going to send him or her a PDF, because And then the other problem I saw was that yesterday I think it was they asked me to fill out a form, but the way to do it was I was to go to a website link, download a paper, print it out, fill it in by hand,
Scan it.
and then take a scan, or they said picture is okay, and then send it back. And I was like, isn't there a fill-out form that I can use? Or can I just write it like whatever, type it in and send it to you by email? And they were like, no, we want you to send this.
Yeah. Now, Desmond, when I think about yesterday, we had a few people from Africa on another interview, and we were talking about how there are certain things. They mentioned connectivity, as you said, as one of the main problems, but also like that there are many opportunity there because it's kind of following a little behind on cybersecurity and technology, and there is a chance to do things right, learning from the mistakes maybe that we have done in the US or in Europe or in other country in Asia. So again, could this be the opportunity to reset certain things, minimalize certain things, to have maybe less but more effective and more secure?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to use a personal experience. So the company that I founded called Information Security Architects, we've been working with the banks, some of the banks here since 2012. Now, when we started off, especially in the areas of penetration testing and some of the managed security services, I was trying to let them understand that, look, we have partnership to Rapid7, and that extends our skill base because we have quite a lot of very good skill from the Rapid7 team that can augment the team that we have here to do the work for you. Now, we have some of the banks saying that, no, we are not going to allow you to do remote testing on our applications. We will need you to be on site. And funny enough, some of them were ready to pay for additional workforce from the Rapid7 team to join us here at their cost. I couldn't understand that. I just can't believe that. I could take that excess money for myself. The attacker is actually going to attack you from the remote platform anyways. They are not going to come into the bank. Come on. Let us do this thing for you remotely. But what's the essence of sharing this experience? Look, 3 years down the line, sometime in 2015, 2016, we had the first bank who said that we don't mind. You guys can do this work remote. So there was a start, and someone has actually taken that. Now, in the COVID era, we went on to a 3-week lockdown after the president has announced some various restrictions and all that. Now, one of our clients needed some services done immediately because the central bank, they were going to actually present one of their products to the central bank for let's call it authorization, some sort of authorization. Now the central bank says that you need to have this application tested. We need to add the application testing report to it. Now, so what did we do? We signed a contract online. We got our insurer to prepare the insurance bond for the performance of the contract online. We got Rapid7 to evaluate the scope of the project online. And the project commenced online. And everything was done online. I was the most excited person ever. But you could see that we only achieved that because there was a factor that was pushing them to do it. And that was the pandemic.
Yep, and that's what Nat said. That take advantage of a crisis.
Exactly. So yes, so COVID came with a big opportunity for many of us. Some of us can lazy at home and be extremely productive than anybody out there. We can just be at home and do everything that we have to do. Probably if the courts even allow us to show up before the judge through WebEx or Zoom, we would do that, So it's an opportunity which is definitely going to change our landscape. We have some of the industries are now thinking around what they can module online as part of their business continuity, because many of them failed the business continuity test when the pandemic started. So it's more of a wake-up call. You don't have time to think about it. You are in it. You have to figure it out, come up with a solution, and get going, or you are just late. That's where we are now. So it's a big opportunity for many other things to happen, from application development to connectivity to business process outsourcing to remote work. Everything just changed for us, and it's not going to stop. It's not.
And I think the business side opportunities, of course, but I am also seeing that this is also for a lot of people opportunity to really think about the quality of life and how you spend your time outside of work.
So true.
A lot of my friends who are working from home now are actually a little bit concerned about when they have to go back to the office. How could they manage that actually going forward, because they are now used to having their own time, that they don't have to commute, and then they can use that time for something else, or maybe even just spending more time with family and taking time for yourself. I think this situation has forced us to really slow down a little bit and really look at what is critical to do in terms of work place, but then also think about how you spend your time at home.
And get creative. I mean, Jonathan, you're giving a good example here of, I remember we spoke about a month and a half ago when we had the coffee before we locked down together, and we were talking about the event in LA and the summit in Tokyo, and all of a sudden, like, I don't know if it's going to happen, but you made it happen. Like in a month, even less, you just created this fantastic event, and it's working. So what is it inspiring for you? I mean, I know we're going to go back to the live in-person event as well, but maybe it's a hybrid world that we will live in.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's a lot of ways to look at it. I see it as an entrepreneur. I'm sure, Desmond, you can relate to this. Is it does two things. It highlights productivity and expands people who are already productive and making them more creative, finding out solutions. One side of that is that, Marco, we talked about this when we met, and I saw there was a juncture. Are we going to not do our in-person events? Instead, let's change that. Let's make it into a global conversation. How can we use this situation and then expand and then explore different ways to connect with people? I would say that this is a juncture also in the conference summit space. People who are in the business of producing conferences as a business. I'm not in the conference business myself, but I would say most of the businesses out there that are doing conferences as a main source of income, or even businesses that are looking at sending their employees and staff for marketing purposes to conferences, are going to rethink value of budgets related to conferences and saying, why are we sending all these people all around the world? There's an impact on the environment. There's an impact on family time that's missed. It has an impact on productivity. Can we actually see the value of sending all these people? Why can't we actually just go and participate in SIA's summit, for example? It's free. It's not going to cost you any time. Matter of fact, people are probably more connected through our platform here. And you may say I'm biased, but you better believe I'm biased, because we did an event that I think is, for the first time, that we're seeing so much connectivity across multiple continents. It's not costing anybody, right? Like Desmond, it doesn't charge you. I didn't say, Desmond, for you to talk, Desmond, you're going to have to pay, because I know you work as a consultant, you have your own business, and you're selling your products and services. You know that's going to cost you money to get to an audience. I said, no. Let's not do that. Let's create an environment so that people can share information. And if they feel that he's adding value, which I can see by looking at the audience participation is you are, that they can make their own decision, and that's going to shift the landscape of how companies are going to spend money on marketing, how they're going to send their staff to events globally. It's going to have a positive impact, I think, on the environment. If you look at snapshots of different major global metropolitan cities that are now on lockdown, you'll probably see a significant reduction in smog, the quality of the air. Even though that we are still in this period of lockdown, there's going to be the shift in how people interact in our political economy. So for me, it's family time, increases the time of me spending time at home. Yeah. 2, it's also positive reinforcement of hygiene and good etiquette around that, which should always be done. With or without COVID-19, we should always be concerned on hygiene and etiquette, right? And
it's a good time to look back on our habits and like, maybe buffet is not that good of an idea.
Yeah,
just think of the money saved and the landfills saved. I don't know if they're going to stretch all the way over from all these lanyards.
Oh yeah,
no longer getting and then throwing away. I keep a few of them.
All the events,
the ones that light up, I like. But
but I mean, let me say that. The other side of this, though, the dark side of this is companies also have a lot of unproductive employees, and working remotely is, I think, tremendously difficult to manage a workforce dispersed. I think I have another company that I run and have invested into, and we have a dispersed team and work with dispersed teams and sometimes on-site teams, and it's a very difficult challenge. And it's more of an issue of work ethic, trust, relationships that you have with your employee staff dispersed. And if you have that built-in trust with your employee, then it's more manageable. But if you're a large organization with, let's say, 50,000 employees or even like 900 employees, and they're all working from home, I think it really makes it invariably challenging to manage that type of arrangement from a work ethic and productivity. It can be very productive, but it also can be extremely inefficient and challenging. And I think a lot of companies are finding there might be some real challenges in managing, even with all the, let's assume all the economies of scale, you have workforce productivity applications and you're secure, assuming that you can get to that. But just from the personal work ethic standpoint, you have challenges, and we have those challenges too. When you have dispersed teams, how do you manage that from a work ethic standpoint? So that's an area that very little is discussed, because a real bad employee is going to be an even worse employee when you have them working from home, I think. So.
And also similar to that, also very difficult to manage the working hours, which there in Japan at least there's quite a strict regulations, about the overtime and how you. And I actually find myself sometimes working much longer, right, than if I were at the office and trying to catch the train to come back home. I actually, because I'm already home, I feel maybe it's okay to work a little bit longer, or I might start earlier just because I see an email. So So I think from that perspective, it's really hard for me to also, the team members, the work hours, it is difficult to manage as well.
Yeah, and I think there's the other side of that equation is the kind of Jonathan's point, to continue on that train of thought, is that the organization has a responsibility to help the employee maintain a healthy environment as well, right?
Yeah.
So they shouldn't be looking, and either purposefully or accidentally, looking to take advantage of the fact that you will work a little extra at home, right? That shouldn't be the point. And there was a comment here that you need to hire people you trust, to Jonathan's point, where a bad employee is going to be a crappy employee at home. I think if we try to lift and shift our current world to digital, it's not going to work like that, right? Wholesale. I think we need to evaluate, lift parts, shift some, cut others, define new. And I think every company has a culture. It may be one that you like, maybe one that you don't like, but that culture is going to be with you for the time being as well. And it may shift and mold over time to react to the new world we'll live in. But again, that culture is going to shift, right? Whatever you do. So if you're embracing your employees, if you're leveraging what they have to offer, if you're supporting them to have a healthy work-life balance, those cultural things will will maintain as we work through these things.
Well, let's also
If
say
you don't
something.
do that, then you have even more challenges, I'd say.
Yeah, but Sean, the other day we were in a podcast and we come up with, we're lucky because we can work from home. We're lucky because this is work for us. We're consulting, we're writing, doing interview, and running our business remotely. But there is a lot of people that don't have this luxury, and they need it. There's the guy that go pick up the trash. There is the people that work in the health environment and hospitals and everything else. People that run water and gas company and all of that. So let's not forget that, and let's remember that the digital transformation is hitting them too, and that may be not nice because some of them are going to be replaced, and some maybe they are going to have a better performance, maybe more healthy and secure work. Mm-hmm. But there is one thing that I think we need to talk for a little bit before we close, which is the effect on privacy on all of this. And you guys talked about this in the panel before. So what does it mean really when, sure, I'm home, we're working from home, we have more freedom, but do we have that privacy that we normally have when we close the door in home? Well, I'm not even going to go IoT on us, but from the employers. Desmond, what do you think?
Yeah.
Okay, so the whole idea of working from home should just be fit into the context of remote working. Okay. Now, if we do that, then the digital transformation is actually going to start with, like somebody said, someone mentioned, I think Isaiah mentioned that your core business and the core hours that is going to be dealt with. Now, if you look at the whole business value chain, you realize that not every component of it could be sent remotely or could be done from home. So you identify those part of the business that would be digitized, that can be delivered from home. Okay, once you make that decision, it's going to move along with the privacy, the whole discussion around privacy. And mind you, it's also going to impact our recruitment of human capital. When you decide to start working from home, you will have to choose the right human capital. People who have the discipline, people who have the understanding. You would also have to build their knowledge base in using their tech tools more effectively. Now, I ran a concept that I was calling the cumulative time spent. It actually includes even your time on Netflix, because when you are home, you are distracted. So your cumulative time spent would actually, it's a time sheet that you are going to produce. The phone calls you made, the hours spent on those phone calls, your online meetings, the hours spent on those online meetings, the documents you worked on, clients you contacted, these things must be worked out properly. So we must have a standardized way of evaluating the work that people do from home. Now let's go to privacy. If you're going to have a meeting, sorry, I'm trying to look at privacy here in the bigger context, privacy of the employee and then privacy of the employer as well. So now I am having this conversation from my guest room. So what I did was I had to come and create a small studio here, try to put up some lighting and get the kids away, lock myself and have this session as long as I'm supposed to be online. That is to make sure I am not exposing other aspects of the home to that. The last thing you want to do is be at the hall and then somebody runs across the hall with a bowl of soup. Now, if you have a number of people connected and from diverse places, and the issue of privacy is also open up so long as your environment is also open up. So as an employee, if you're going to work from home, you need to first decide which aspect of your home you're going to operate from, especially if the kind of work you're going to do would actually expose you to having others view your environment. The second issue also has to do with your connectivity and the safety of that connectivity. If you're working with a financial setup and you're going to do certain transactions, or you're going to work on certain materials for them, I would presume that a better approach would be for them to probably offer a VPN connection. And if you're running your own small business and you're going to do your online banking and stuff, you might as well also want to invest in some sort of VPN service. So it is important to look at privacy the same way we look at it when we are in the brick and mortar, when we are working for the big corporations, when we are within our corporate space, the same way we have to look at privacy and security when we come working from home. We need to make all the necessary considerations around it. The information that is given to you, does it contain personal data of others? It is not a family document. So obviously you need to have places to keep those things and keep them away from the eyes and the views of those who are not supposed to have it. Because if you were in the office, you are going to apply the same level of scrutiny to ensure that data that is given to you or the privacy concerns around your work is intact. So I want to see this whole conversation, looking at it from ensuring what we are taking home to work on, and then making sure that that particular service, that particular business, in the context in which we are going to operate, we put around the necessary privacy and security measures as well. You know.
Yeah. Good point.
And maybe Nat, as we wrap up here, a final thought, and let's look at it from our business partners are also working from home now as well, right? So, and some of them may or may not be in it for the long haul. They may or may not survive a full lockdown, and we'll have to pick new partners. So how do we establish trust in this new environment with them, both from a security and privacy perspective, and ultimately prepare for a world where perhaps the number and types of vendors that we work with is not going to be the same either?
I think one thing that I have already, expressed to some of my colleagues was that, something we need to be prepared for is that our reputation and, any kind of a feedback coming in from the customers or the business partners will travel very fast, right, online, and also usually in smaller circles nowadays, because you are connecting with the people that you closely associate with in your SNS and this communication channel. So I think from that perspective, we all need to pay attention to how we are seen in those circles that matter to us. And I think same for our business partners, because we will probably rely, on how those potential future business partners are perceived, through connections, network of people that we know or we work with otherwise. So I think that will become an important element in the times going forward.
Yeah.
That's a great visual. The perimeter, one big circle where the data center and the business is inside it, is no longer, right? We talk about that for years. We just painted a picture of a gazillion circles.
It goes back to the beginning when you say, let's consider the legacy that you can shave off. Probably relationship. It's a good way to do that now. Do I really need to expose myself with that third-party vendor? Do I really need that party vendor? What's the kind of risk he's bringing me even in my house? So, well, Jonathan, we know that you have a lot more going on.
Yes.
So
the rest of the full day ahead of you.
Yeah, all night, all day. You'll sleep, I don't know, 3 days.
I'm okay. I feel great. I like it. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, and this is fantastic. And this is the energy. It's that Joseph Schumpeter, who was an economist in Austria many years ago, wrote a book called, I think it was called Capitalism, Socialism, and Democracy. And he talked about creative destruction. And I feel like the digital transformation is a form of creative destruction. What's happening here is we're seeing the transformation, which we are in, and we're sort of in the midst of, and we're seeing peaks of that, like right now in COVID-19 is making that more real and ostentatious, like we're feeling it. But that transformation's been going on for years, and we're seeing the peak of that, and it's gonna go and contain, and you'll see a peak again. And so society goes through these transformations, whether it's mentally, belief systems, physically, economic systems. Shocks happen from the external, and we have to shift how we arrange our societies. So how we shift, how we communicate, the transformation of making sure that our work environment should be secure and safe. But when we shift that, all of a sudden, does our business continuity plans ensure that safety and security is also built into the cornerstone of home office work environments? And oftentimes they are not. And in places around the world, people are not positioned to be able to move into that. So in the shift of that, lots of things are going to transition. A lot of things that are unnecessary are going to move away. A lot of people are going to be dislocated. Society is going to shift. There's going to be huge amounts of unemployment, which we're seeing here in the United States. And the states can act and help try to soften that. But you can only soften it so much. You're going to have transitions that are going to have to force certain outcomes to take place. Like, how do we shift society in a comfortable way? Because you also want to have safety nets in place too, right? There's a responsibility on the part of states to be able to provide safety and security for its people and the society. So it's a balance of how to manage this. Just like with the previous conversation, Chris mentioned, a lot of the applications that we're using on the social is free, and we have to exchange that for access and productivity. But and the access and productivity of the applications in exchange for the marketing and access of our information. So it's constantly this balance of how we value our own privacy, and that's in the context of social. But in the context of a business, then that's something the businesses need to also have that constant evaluation. So it's been.
And I'm going to raise one final point that Desmond brought up, that the digital transformation is likely to increase the digital divide, right? And I think we need to be very, very cognizant of that potential and be very aware and do what we can to help our fellow friends and neighbors wherever they reside stay happy and healthy and successful in their roles, right?
And it goes back to the reason why we do this is everybody is needing access to quality, accurate information. And we hope that in our humble approach in the Cybersecurity Conference is to be able to provide that and be a purveyor of one aspect of the story. I'm sure there's a lot of other aspects of the story that wasn't told during the 4 days. We're only halfway. I think we have 1 day left, but there's a lot of perspectives that we can't capture in the 4 days. However, we're at least interested in that conversation. There's a streams of conversations going on, and we have to acknowledge that there's so much out there, and we have to select and choose one that fits.
We're definitely not getting bored in this job. And Sean and I having this conversation when you talk about the intersection of cybersecurity, technology, and society. It's always something new. It's always something that we learn. And when we finish the conversation, we're like, oh, wait a minute. Now this is another idea. And you just jump to the next one. So it's Jonathan, it's a conversation that is going to go way beyond these 3 days. But I think it was a great event. It's still on. And we are well-intentioned to bring it to the next step after this. This is the beginning of a lot of global approach, global conversation on cybersecurity and society.
I'll leave with this, is that we all can do this, which is fascinating, right? Because I'm not a event planner, neither is our team that are producing this. We don't come from the events production space. We were interested in just bringing people together and sharing ideas, and that's it. Yep. And there's no other, we connect and we come up with ideas, and I can see there's a lot of ideas going on, people sharing information and links in the conversation chat box. And a lot of people have taken that into LinkedIn, they've taken that to Twitter, and I've seen some of the connections happen. And that's what we want to see. We want to see more people looking at the power of their own ability to be able to do that, to leverage connection. And there's a lot of people that don't have access to that connection, and that's a separate issue in itself. But for those like us that have the chance to be able to connect this way, really take advantage of that and tap into that inner creativity, because there's a lot of great things that can happen when we're in this captive COVID-19 quarantine. So
so maybe COVID just redefined global village for us.
Yeah,
I love it. Awesome. Yeah, global village, a new vision of the global village for sure.
Yeah. I mean, look at where we are today. I mean, I'm talking to Natsue, who's in Tokyo, Desmond's in Accra, and we've had about maybe 25 different countries over the last 2 days, and I haven't had the chance to connect with even half of them yet. We still have a whole other day tomorrow, and 2 panels on Africa, another panel related to balancing COVID-19 and privacy. And the whole conversation tomorrow that we have looking at contact tracing, how the applications look like, what are countries doing in response to tracking, and are they really tracking? What's going on when they say tracking? How are they anonymized? How do we feel comforted in how they're anonymized? Are they insecure? How will Bluetooth work? And is Bluetooth really truly free of vulnerabilities? And most people say no, it's not. So if you're using that as a beacon, then we're going to see massive amounts of vulnerabilities and access to that data. So
yeah, you don't want to give up privacy for security. And we are here quoting, Marshall McLuhan. This is Benjamin Franklin. And who's next? Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Let's do the social contract, and how we're all into that right now.
Yeah, man is born free, and everywhere he goes, he's in chains.
There you go. And with this, our philosophy conversation ends. And
I'd like to say thank you to Nat and Desmond for having this conversation with us. Jonathan, of course, thank you for introducing us to 2 new friends. This is really cool.
Thank you. Have a good rest of the day.
You
Bye,
too.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.